Hello everyone and welcome back to Navis Nobilite. I am Captain Zelnick and today we are going to be going over the Orc fleet lists. And I want you to know that the Orcs, while generally speaking, follow most of the same rules as the standard fleet rules of the Chaos and Imperium. They do have a couple of very unique special rules that set them apart. And I want to clear up a lot of misconceptions about the Orcs. Uh, Orcs are not meant to be reliable. And anybody who argues that orcs are meant to be reliable, you should probably question their 40k credentials. The orcs in Battlefleet Gothic are meant to be a very random, a very variable, but altogether a very tough, durable, and dangerous fleet. Just because you roll poorly on your guns doesn't mean you're going to roll poorly on your torpedoes. You could roll horribly on your leadership and have a really bad game, or you could roll astoundingly good on your leadership and suddenly you're going to find that the orc fleet with majority leadership 7 and 8 is kind of overpowered. But so bear in mind the orcs are not meant to be consistent. Claiming that you have the right to consistency in any game is a sign of intense narcissism. You are not entitled to anything. And because Battlefleet Gothic cares far more about the fluff of the setting than, say, 40k does, the result is orcs are going to be a fleet list that you're either going to have resounding comedic victories or resounding comedic defeats. But one way or another, if you learn how to use your fleet, the problems and the setbacks that the orc fleet has can be mitigated. And ultimately, because of the way the orcs are built, you can, in the middle of battle, switch your tactics and still be effective. So, first things first, orc leadership. Now, orcs are not good at organization. They never have been. They're not necessarily good at anything aside from yelling, screaming, and hitting things over the head. As a result, the leadership is -1 from what they rolled, giving them a leadership range of 5 to 8. This is pretty nasty, but remember that warlords are able to swap leaderships from cruises that have a better leadership than their own vessel, which is why it's always good to take some cheap cruises when you can. Now, all ahead full, orcs automatically pass all ahead full because they actually are smart enough to wire up a big red button in the cockpit that anyone can press if they walk past. Now, they don't have the best engines in the world. They only go an additional 2d6 centimeters when going on all head full. There are a couple of battleships that ignore this rule and go the full 46. But go have a look at those individual fleet ships videos to see which ones they are. This is usually enough, though, to be intimidating for your enemy. Now, it does not exempt it from restrictions that occur when you fail your command check. So it's very important when you're playing orcs, declare your all ahead fulls first, then do your more complicated special orders. Okay? All of your uh, reloads and your lock-ons should happen after your all-ahead fulls. All right? Boarding. Orcs get a +1 to boarding. This is no surprise. Orcs, pretty much every capital ship that can take torpedoes can take, actually all of them can take uh, boarding torpedoes. Space Hulks can take it for 15 points. Pretty much I think every capital ship for the Orcs can take some form of torpedoes in the front. Escorts cannot take boarding torpedoes. Okay. This is where things are going to get a little bit weird, so bear with me. Okay, some orc ships, specifically everything in the battle cruiser and battleship area, have variable launch capacity. To determine what your actual launch capacity is, what you need to do is to find the total launch capacity in the beginning of the game, roll the relevant dice for any vessel with variable launch capacity and add this to the strength for any ship with fixed strength. That determines your launch capacity. Any excess attack craft above this total are removed at the end of the turn. Use them or lose them. Torpedoes are not subject to this rule. So it's always good to shoot your fighter bombers as soon as you can. And yeah, some of them are going to die from attrition, but you'll still be able to launch plenty of them. Your fighter bombers, they function the same as both fighters and bombers, and they are probably one of the best bombers in the game. They only roll D3 attack runs and they move 25 centimeters, but they automatically apply a bonus to turret suppression, adding +1 attack for each marker in the wave after attack modifiers by turrets. Meaning no matter what, even if turret suppression is above 3, you're getting at least 1 attack. That's what makes them so good. It doesn't matter if you get D3, you're going to get at least 1 attack. You can also sacrifice one of the fighter bombers that get through the turrets to have it do turret suppression, and adds an additional +1 bonus to all the surviving fighter bombers. Which means you can give them a +2. Ain't that great? So bear that in mind. Fighter bombers are really where a lot of the damage actually comes from. Guns are nice, but fighter bombers are really where it's at. So let me actually read this example just so I can make sure you understand that. A terror ship launches a single wave of fighter bombers against a devastation cruiser with 3 turrets and no combat air patrol. Declaring 2 markers are not attacking and will be only suppressing turrets. The devastation's turrets roll a 2, 3, and 4, knocking down 1 fighter bomber. After one of the surviving markers is removed for suppressing turrets, the 2 remaining markers now each roll 1d3 minus 3, minimum of 0, attacks. But because each marker also counts as a fighter, it adds +1 attack for each marker. It then adds +2 attacks for the 2 markers used only to suppress turrets, even though one was removed, for a single total addition of +4 attacks. So you can force the issue and make absolutely sure that damage will be done. Or at the very least, you get a chance to make a attack run on the craft. Sorry, I misspoke. Even if the turrets are knocked down the fighter bomber, you still get the turret suppression. So that's why fighter bombers are so good. You can force the issue. Now, torpedo bombers. All right. Torpedo bombers do not function as fighter bombers. Then they move only 20 centimeters. Aside from that, they function just like every other torpedo bomber in the game. 10 points per bay, and if you have variable bays, you have to pay for the maximum possible launch capacity that it could do. So, Ork orbital mines. Orks can use orbital mines for 5 points per maximal launch bay strength. That's really ridiculous if you want to use it in a game, but by all means, don't let me tell you no. Okay, Ork weapons. This is where things get, again, a little bit weird. Orks are not reliable in their firepower. And a lot of their weapons have variable strength. Now, that means they can either be really, really pathetic or really, really good. Again, it's all down to the dice roll. Now, there are upgrades that allow you to re-roll that dice, but in each ship, for guns specifically, you will see what dice roll you need to roll for the strength of the firepower. Heavy guns. These are very short-range weapons, okay? Only 15 centimeters. Very, very, very powerful. But whenever they hit, they cause 2 hits. And they don't count gunnery modifiers for range. So even if you're within 15 centimeters, you don't gain the gunnery, the left column shift. Sorry. But you do cause 2 hits per successful hit, which is amazingly good, especially on the Savage gunships. Like guns, torpedo launches also have variable strength. Look at the characteristic on the data card to see what it is. Ork rock can be used as planetary defenses. I'm not going to go into the detail of these particular rules because it's mostly for campaigns and planetary assaults. I highly recommend you read this if you end up using them as planetary defenses. You can find this in the BFG Remastered Fleet List. Now, on to the Ork Fleet List themselves. Now, Ork Pirate Cyclops Cluster Fleet List is kind of out of date. This is from the Blue Book. Everything that is in here is in the Ork WOG Fleet List, just like the Eldar Blue Book list is basically outmoded by the later Armageddon, the Armada book that came out later. So we're just going to go over the third Armageddon War Ork WOG Fleet List. Now, Warlords. You may include one or more warlord in your fleet, each of whom must be assigned a ship or squadron. If the fleet is worth 500 points or more, it must have at least one warlord to lead it. An orc fleet may include a max of one warlord per 500 points. If the if the fleet is worth up to 500 points, it may have one. If it's worth 500 to 1,000, it may have two, etc. Orc warlords do not gain a bonus to leadership, but they are very cheap at 40 points, and they get a reroll. You may also purchase rerolls for dirt cheap, up to one additional reroll or two extra additional rerolls at 20 and 40 points respectively. They're very, very cheap. Orc warlords are only 40 points. That's great. A vessel carrying a warlord doubles its boarding value and may include one of the upgrades shown below at the cost indicated. They can have maniac gunners, which lets them re-roll their dice for firepower of guns when it fires. Mad mechs, you may re-roll your damage control dice. Extra power fields. The shield value increases by 1. Very handy for the larger ships. Mega armor boarding parties, a +1 modifier on boarding, basically making them space marines. And looted torpedoes. Ship may re-roll their dice for strength of torpedo salvos when it fires. Now, onto the fleet list itself. It is a big fleet list. There's a lot of things that you can add in here. Now, space hulks. You may add up to one space hulk in your fleet per 1,500 points, which means, guess what? You can have two the moment you go above 1,500 points. They're 600 points a pop, but they're a monstrous hunk of hate that you put on the table and watch as the enemy desperately tries to kill it. Good luck to them. All right, onto your battleships and battle cruises. Now, a note: Slam Blasta, Gorbag's Revenge, Death Dealer, and Cruel Boy are all unique ships. You may only have one. You may have as many Hammer-class battle cruises as you want to take, so bear that in mind. How very nice. Now, Hammer-class battle cruises are really, really good because they have all of the best benefits of a lot of these other battleships. Gorbag's Revenge really does stand out as the best of the battleships, but all of them have a place and all of them are useful. So bear that in mind. Go ahead and watch my videos on those battleships to see what they can really bring to your table. Now, on to cruises. You may include up to 6 cruises in your fleet. That's not a lot of cruises, by the way. Your kill cruises and your terror ships. And you can include any number of escorts in your fleet. Onslaught, Savages, Ravagers, Brutes, and Grunts. Now, the Grunts can take claws. Remember that. But obviously, from the setup that we have, right, you can take, for every 2 cruises, you can take a battleship or a hammer. But you can only take 6 cruises. But you can take any number of escorts. And of course, you can take any number of rocks, because why not? It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, this is an escort-oriented fleet. You can take any number of them, and they're very, very cheap, and they're very, very powerful. So what you should be considering, if you want to take a cruiser-oriented fleet, you're going to be focusing a lot on taking terror ships, because they're simply the better option. Now, if you're going to be taking Gorbag's Revenge, that could actually adjust your choice, because Gorbag's has a lot of launch capacity. So you may actually take a bunch of kill cruises with maybe 1 or 2 terror ships instead. But never, ever sleep on your escorts. The onslaughts can unleash an incredible amount of firepower on a target. Savage gunships have heavy guns on a fast-moving small platform. Ravagers have more torpedoes than should be allowed in the game. Brute ram ships are highly maneuverable and do a huge amount of damage when they impact something, and grunts are great at boarding and grabbing onto ships and slowing them down and causing a lot of damage when they do it. These escorts are phenomenal. By all means, use them in large numbers, but there is enough flexibility for you to make this a cruiser-oriented fleet. Now, on to upgrades that the whole fleet can take. Daka. Or capital ships may add +2 to their turrets for 20 points. You cannot take 1 turret for 10 points. It's 2 turrets, 20 points, that's it. Orc escorts can take 1 turret for 5 points per escort, and if you take it, every escort must also take it. These are very important for Orc capital ships because they have a 4-up rear armor, and Orcs are very weak to bombers. Specifically, this is also really good for Orc escorts because it basically turns a escort squadron into a turret quagmire for any kind of ordnance. So you could use them in the same way as the sword escort works for the Imperial Navy, basically chewing up incoming enemy ordnance with just ridiculous amounts of turrets. So that is your most basic and probably the most used of all of the orc lists, because the next one is very complicated. We're on to orc clans. Now, there are several clans. They have all specific rules. Some of them cost points for their upgrades. You may, because of the way that the orc clan list is situated, it is basically you have a war boss that controls a number of squadrons. That war boss can take a clan upgrade, and everything beneath it may also take that clan upgrade. You can take multiple clans, but they have to have basically a ruling war boss to allow the other ships to follow those clans. It is also one of the few things in the game where it says you must paint your ships a certain color to gain advantage of it. Okay, so bear all of that in mind. So the clan upgrades, the Goths for additional 20 points per ship. The let me double check that. I don't know if these upgrade by paying the points as shown by the squadron. Okay, so it's per squadron, which means cruisers and escorts and battleships, if you can take squadrons of battleships, but it's only 20 points for the whole squadron. So that's actually quite handy. Now, the Goths are the most aggressive of the orc clans, born fighters among a race born for fighting. Goths like it up and close and personal, and consider all other clans wimps for hanging back and shooting. All Goth ships gain +1 bonus to their dice while during boarding actions and a +1 leadership to ram. So this is actually one of the more useful of all of the upgrades because there's nothing wrong with gaining a +1 bonus, especially if you have a war boss with mega armored boarding parties giving you a +3. And ramming is always an important thing for orcs, and it's only 20 points. Very useful. Evil Sons, 20 points, you must paint them red. They are obsessed with speed, endlessly tinkering with their vehicles, the engines of their vehicles and ships, trying to get them as much speed out of them as possible. They all gain +5 centimeter speed. Another excellent upgrade for the orcs, especially on their cruises, because you want to get them close as soon as possible, without necessarily going on all ahead full. Now, Bad Moons. 30 points, paint them yellow. Riches the clans using their own fast-growing teeth as currency, making them also a valuable target for other orcs. Bad Moons don't mind being a target, though, because they proudly display their wealth. All ships in Bad Moon squadrons gain Maniac Gunner's upgrade. Probably the best of all of the upgrades, despite the high cost. But Maniac Gunners, if you put that in a group of onslaughts, it's amazing. You put it on one of the gunnery battleships or a hammer, it's amazing. It makes kill cruises amazing. Now, Death Skulls, 30 points, blue. Masters of Salvage, all of them, Death Skull's capital ships and or Tidla, or escort squadrons, have looted upgrades, torpedoes and or lances for no additional cost. Wonderful upgrade. Expensive, but wonderful, because looted torpedoes is a great upgrade. Blood Axes, for free. You have to paint them green, because, they're orky. The Warlord ship may take one refit from the Imperial Navy refit table rolled randomly for 20 points. A Blood Axe escort squadron for at least 6 escorts may include up to 3 Imperial Navy and or Chaos escorts from any fleet list at their listed cost. These commandeered vessels must have an orky color scheme and custom job. You can't borrow the ships from your Imperial or Chaos fleet. So very, very fluffy and very fun, but this can be very expensive over time. Snake Bites. Most primitive it's as primitive as it gets. It's free. Paint them brown. Snakebite capital squadrons can only use space hulks or rocks, but they get a +1 bonus to command ships when attempting to brace for impact. So very handy. But hey, you know what? Rocks and hulks, nothing wrong with that. Now, mob rule. Big groups of orcs. Orc escorts are surprisingly coordinated. Ork escort squadrons gain a +1 bonus leadership while they contain more than 5 models, or lots as the Orks call it. Orks aren't very good at counting. The maximum number of escorts in an Ork squadron can be up to 10. This is one of the unique elements of this fleet over the standard Ork WOG. You can take a lot more escorts in your squadron, and +1 bonus leadership is very important for Orks, especially if they're Ravager torpedo boats, because the Ravagers need to reload their reload special order. They're reliant on it, otherwise they're useless. So taking a whole mess of Ravagers, giving them a +1 leadership, that's really handy. Now, young guns. While not technically skilled, Orks do have a boundless enthusiasm for fighting. Any Ork escort squadron with a leadership of 5 or 6 gains a bonus escort ship added for free. So even if you roll horribly on your leadership, you still get something, a free additional ship. Okay? This includes if the leadership is a result of being swapped with a war boss. So you can actually be very tactical with this little advantage. It could be any Ork escort class in the fleet, costing equal to or less than the cheapest escort paid for the squadron. Young guns can be applied before mob rule. A Tidless squadron with 5 escorts that rolls LD5 may have a 6 for free, increasing that leadership to 6. So, what a great rule. I mean, it's so orky and it's so good for their escorts. All right, on to Gubbins. So Gubbins are additional and specialized upgrades for this fleet list. Warlords may band together. Just getting to the actual thing. A vessel or escort squadron led by a warlord may be given up to one of the following upgrades per command reroll he has, which gives you another reason to buy more command rerolls. Each upgrade can only be applied once. Players are actively encouraged to change their upgrades from battle to battle in a typically restless and orky fashion. So if you're playing campaigns, these upgrades will shift. Each warlord that does so at least twice over the course of the campaign may have their first normally earned refit for free instead of paying the normal 10% cost. So there is a benefit for campaign rules to keep switching things around. For Tidal squadrons, the point of cost for clan upgrades count toward the whole squadron, no matter how big it is. So again, they're telling you to take lots of escorts in this fleet. It is not, you don't pay for individual escorts. It also means the enemy gets additional victory points for each clan upgrade if the Tidal squadron is entirely wiped out. So again, another big benefit to the Orks. Here are the Gubbins. Oh, and it has to be applied to the entire squadron, obviously. Super boosters. Ship gains +5 centimeter speed and rolls 46 when all head full. Extra power fields, not for escorts, gain additional shield. Extra turrets. Gain 2 additional turrets, escorts get 1. Maniac gunners, not for escorts. Ship turret value is replaced by D3 turrets. This cannot be combined with extra turrets. Looted lances. Any heavy guns batteries on the ship can be replaced with a strength 2 lance battery, strength with range of 15 centimeters for escorts and 30 centimeters for capital ships. That's a fun one. Looted torpedoes. Reroll the strength for torpedo salvos. Mad mechs, not for escorts, obviously. You may reroll the dice when repairing critical damage. Maniac gunners, reroll the dice for firepower. Mega armor boarding parties, gains a +1 modifier when rolling boarding actions. Prow ram, not for escorts. This adds +1 bonus when rolling a leadership check and causes +1 automatic HP damage before rolling to inflict damage. Even better than the powered ram of the Imperial Navy. And teleporter. Hit and run attacks may be taken at 30 centimeters, which suddenly makes teleport attacks so much more useful. Now, following Gubbins may be taken by any number of capital ships in the fleet. More Gubbins are not available for escort except for the grunt when indicated, and can only be added to capital ships. Okay, claws, which function exactly the same as Tyrannid giant claws. They are unaffected by special orders of any kind and cannot be used by capital ships if they are crippled. Anytime the ship moves into base contact with any one enemy ship during the movement phase, it immediately rolls 2d6. Each roll inflicts a hit on a 4+, ignoring shields but not hollow fields. Brace for impact works normally against claws. Each ship with claws may only use it once per turn, regardless of how many vessels contacts during the Orc player's movement phase. Though it does not have to be the first ship in contact. If claws hit only once or not at all, the ship can continue moving after making the attack and shoot, launch ordnance, etc. If both attacks hit, then the vessel is grabbed and the target the enormous mechanical claws has latched on. Neither vessel may move if they are the same class or smaller, such as a cruiser to cruiser, but a larger class vessel may still move, but only at half rate. Both ships may shoot at half effectiveness. Nova cannons cannot fire, etc. If in every end phase roll in every end phase roll to attack again, 2 dice, needing 4+ to hit. If both attacks hit on a vessel that's already grappled, then it takes a third additional hit. Either ship may conduct a boarding action as normal. Damage caused by claws cause critical hits as normal. A wonderful upgrade and great on grunts. You have to pay 5 points per escort. But if you're into boarding, this is really a great upgrade for you. Shock Attack Lance. This is really freaking complicated, but really silly. Ship's heavy guns batteries can be replaced with this weapon, which cannot be used if the ship is crippled or braced. It is effective only effective against ships with shields down in the same manner as teleporters. When used, the ship rolls a hit of a 4+, range 30 centimeters. Holofields and being braced both save normally against this. If the hit is rolled, D3+1 snotling hordes are teleported into the enemy ship. If a miss is rolled, place a blast marker in contact with the vessel, even if the shields are already down. That's what happens to the Gretchen if they miss. A giant cloud of Gretchen. For the hordes of vacuum-frozen snotlings bashing against the interior of the hull. Each hit does not cause damage. Instead, the next leadership check or special order made by the ship with it must be made with an extra D6, such as 3D6 when already or even more when already using 3d6, such as when all ahead full through an asteroid field. Additional hits from this weapon only add the number of hordes that must be eradicated before the ship can return to normal leadership. Every special order done in this matter, even if failed, repairs one of these hordes as the crew works furiously to shove thousands of snotlings out the nearest airlock. This can be also each repaired by you doing a normal repair roll for critical damage. Escorts have fewer complex systems than capital ships and are smaller overall, while multiple snotling hordes can possibly get into some vital system that in the end overwhelms the vessel. It's just as likely that it will miss vital spaces entirely. When fired at escorts, the defending squadron rolls a d6. On a 4+, the closest escort gets an additional blast marker placed in contact with it, as hordes have no effect. On a roll of 3 or less, the nearest escort in range with no shield is destroyed. Being braced does work against this. So it's a goofy way of hurting your enemy's leadership, and if you want pure comedy, by all means take a shock attack lance. You're not going to be doing a lot of damage, but you could definitely inconvenience an enemy carrier with this weapon. It only has 3-centimeter range, so bear that in mind. Assault Carrier, free upgrade. Any ship that takes both attack craft and torpedoes can be optimized for hit-and-run attacks and boarding actions by particularly zealous orcs. It takes boarding torpedoes for free, but it may only use assault boats. It may launch +1 assault boat for every marker, assault boat marker each time it launches attack craft, even if crippled or braced, but not both. All right, on to the actual fleet list. That was a massive wall of words. Okay, Orc fleets always include one warlord for every 500 points or part that the fleet is worth, no more or less. The Orc warlord is free. The warlord adds +2 to its boarding dice roll. It has 1 reroll and may purchase up 1 or 2 more at the point cost shown below. Now, note, this does not double your boarding value. It just gives you +2 to the boarding dice roll. Now, the rerolls are, however, the same cost, and you may choose for his ship or escort squadron 1 upgrade from his Gubbins list for every reroll you have purchased. He must be embarked on the most expensive ship under his own command, as opposed to the whole fleet. Even if it is an escort, annotate which one it is. A warlord's rerolls only count for the squadrons under his command. So you see, it's very top-down. The warlord controls a number of other ships below him. Okay. So, A warlord must be in command of one escort squadron of at least 3 escorts and one other squadron for each reroll he has. This means for every reroll a warlord has, including the first one for free, he must take one escort squadron of up to 3 escorts and any one other squadron type. So huge ship squadron, big ship squadron, or escort squadron. He may also swap leadership with any one ship or escort squadron in his command. That is a unique thing because normally warlords can only take from cruisers. Now, this means he must have one escort squadron and one other squadron under his command. He may take the Slambastard, Gorbag's Revenge, Death Dealer, or Cruel Boy, or the Hammer with the same restrictions as the WOG fleet list because the battleships are unique, the Hammers are not. Now, Big Ship Squadron. 1 to 2 cruisers, choosing from Terror Ship, Kill Cruiser, or Light Cruiser, which can be very handy because light cruisers are cheap. And your Escort Squadron. 3 to 10 escorts, choosing from the following list in any mix desired. Same as before. Now here's a fun thing. You can only take 1 to 4 rocks in this fleet. So there you go. 80 points per rock, but you can take 1 to 4 rocks. Nothing's stopping you. Oh, I'm sorry. You can take as many rocks as you want, but the squadron itself is 1 to 4. That's actually pretty handy. An Ork fleet with at least 3 warlords may include 1 Space Hulk. One of your warlords must be embarked on it, which by itself counts as all the squadrons the warlord can have, including escorts. Regardless of how many rerolls the warlord has, the Space Hulk so led can take upgrades from the Gubbins list for double the coin cost because it's a frickin' Hulk. Upgrades that increase its boarding value or speed cannot be taken. And of course, the Ork Hulk is 600 points. So, now, ordnance. Obviously, torpedo bombers are an option. The point costs are as listed. Now, using squadrons. There is no restriction for what kinds or how many of what type of squadrons are in the fleet, as long as no warlord may have more than 1 huge ship, which counts as the squadron by itself. Each squadron must be fielded with the number of ships chosen for it in this list. You can't split up squadrons or add more ships to them. However, no more than one of each of the named Ork battleships may be taken. As repeating the information, Space Hulk may only be taken in a fleet of no less than 1,500 points. A lot of this is repeating information. Yeah, all of this is just repeating information that's on the fleet list. There are, of course, campaign rules that you should read if you're interested in campaigns, and I will go over in the campaign rules video. But ultimately, basically the way it works is you have a number of warlords that you get for free, okay? That warlord can take a clan, and everything underneath him can then pay the points to gain the upgrades of that clan. If that makes any sense, I hope it does. It's a very complicated fleet list. So each individual warlord is going to have an escort squadron and one other kind of squadron. All right? And you must have another squadron for every reroll that you have. So you'll have a maximum of 4 squadrons under the command of a warlord. So you could be at a minimum of 2 unless you take an Ork Hulk. The warlord, if he takes one of the upgrades, that includes the clans, everything under his command may take the clan upgrade as well for the points shown. Read this very carefully. It is very complicated and works differently than any other fleet list in Battlefleet Gothic, because instead of having one definitive commander, you have a bunch of definitive commanders piloting their own little fleets. It's so much less a one war boss beating up all the other war bosses under his command, and it's a bunch of little war bosses with their own little fleets. So that's the Ork fleet lists. I hope that was informative. I have a sinking suspicion that what I said made absolutely no sense. If you have any questions, please by all means leave some questions in the comments section, and I will try to explain it. I personally don't use the squadrons list because I like simplicity of the WOG fleet list for the Third Armageddon War. Well, one way or another, thank you all so much for watching. I'm sorry about the addled nature of this video, but Oh, it can get complicated. See you all in the next video. I'm going on to the next fleet. I'm going to probably ask around to see which one I'm going to do next, but it's likely going to be Craftworld, Eldar, or Tau. We'll have to see what's coming up. I'll talk with you all later. Have a great day.